Okay, hello and welcome to Not the UK Column News. It's Thursday the 20th. Well, actually, we're not allowed to say that. It's too television-like.
Too
television-like. Do you think we're allowed to discuss the weather, Brian?
I think it could be risky. Perhaps we can't comment on it because the television certainly does that, but maybe we could show people.
Well,
is that possible?
Feel free. Now, of course, we're not allowed to switch shots because that would be too television-like.
So this
Brian's
is by hand. Here we are.
Pick the camera up and show you the weather. It is wet and yucky and horrible.
The sky is pretty grim, as you can see. That's grey sky. But I won't say any more because, well, Atvod may pick us up for being television-like.
Yes, okay, good. You even managed to, right, fantastic, okay. Well, I mean, there is one advantage to this, Brian. We have shown the weather and we're not in the studio, so it's actually cooler.
It is.
In the car. Well, I'm not allowed really to ask you questions because that would be too television-like and it might be considered a television interview.
Yeah. Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah,
because no, you're not allowed to ask questions. That would be an interview.
Right. Okay. Well, this is just a one-off.
Oh, okay.
I just wondered that am I right in thinking that we've caused a problem? The BBC's got a budget of 3.65 billion, and then you can add on the extra bit of another billion for all of the 1.2 billion for all of the commercialised stuff. But we the UK column have been so television-like that we've caused a problem.
Yes, seems like it.
Okay.
Because Atvod's phones don't seem to be working today.
No, I've heard that there's been a lot of calls going through to Atvod.
Yeah. And of course the other thing that we've got to do is to reduce our production values because high production values are considered to be television-like. Right. So we have reduced our production values by coming into the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is not a studio, this is a car.
And yes, there's no green screen here. There's actually a steering wheel.
And a baby seat.
And there is a child seat, although for some reason Lou's not sitting in it.
Yeah.
Right, so anyway, let's move on. Okay, maybe we should discuss the chain of events which has led us to where we are.
Yeah, because we're talking about this with a bit of humour in a car, because that's what we've had to do, but we're discussing some very, very serious stuff. This is the start of the UK government regulating the internet in order to shut up people who are telling the truth in a television-like way.
In a television-like way,
yeah.
Allegedly. Now, Atvod originally contacted us in February, and they claimed at that point that we were required to advise them that we were running a video-on-demand service, whatever that means.
Yeah.
So that's what they told us, and they asked us to fill in a form and send it back to them, which we didn't do because we wanted to understand exactly what it was that we were filling in.
Yeah. Am I allowed to look at you because it's a bit? Is this an interview?
Well, I think if you were looking at the camera. Well, if you were looking at the camera too much, that might be too television-like. But anyway,
I'll just generally look out the window.
Following that initial communication, I had a number of telephone conversations with Atvod, and this is really what they said to us. They said that the fact that the UK column is a not-for-profit association staffed by volunteers had no bearing on any determination that they would make. So they really were not saying that they were only regulating corporate entities, but anybody really. So the scope is as broad as you like, from a one-man band in their bedroom right up to the BBC.
Yeah.
The typical number of YouTube video views has no bearing on it whatsoever either. So I pointed out that according to YouTube at least, our daily video broadcasts had video on demand videos had maybe between 2,000 and 3,000 views each day. Yeah. So we didn't exactly have a large market share here, and as far as Atvod was concerned, that was irrelevant. So even the smallest producer is if they choose to produce a particular type of product,
yeah,
comes under their remit.
So, well, it's really the truth that does the damage, isn't it, rather than the viewing figures?
I would say so.
Yeah. So.
Then, of course, we come to this issue of the fact that the UK column is not providing video-on-demand content, or was not providing video-on-demand content exclusively. That they made clear, or they seemed to make clear to me, was not going to save us from being required to register with them. Indeed, if you read the final determination that they make, which is doing the rounds of the internet at the moment, they state that the only thing they were interested in was the YouTube channel. So they completely ignored the fact that ukcolumn.org exists. They completely ignored the fact that there are written articles on that website. They completely ignored the fact that we produce a quarterly newspaper. And they have made a determination on the basis that video on demand was our primary action that we take. And of course that is not and has never been the case. Now some people have said that all it would have taken was for us to write to Atvod and make a representation to Atvod that in fact our video on demand content was not our primary purpose, and all this would have just gone away. But that is not what I understood from the conversations that I had with Atvod staff. But perhaps that's just because I'm an idiot. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to suggest, Mike, that maybe it's because Atvod doesn't know what the rules are themselves.
Right, indeed. Atvod agreed. Absolutely, they agreed with me that they have no definition of what television-like is, and that any decisions about what constitutes a television-like program are completely arbitrary, completely made off the cuff by a group of people.
You're getting me worried now, because we're here. This could be, even though we're in a car in the rain, this could be television.
This could be television-like considered.
Yeah. Okay.
Now the next point was that Atvod agreed that there had been up to this point no court challenge to what defines television-like, and therefore no rulings by the courts, and so they have not been challenged in what their arbitrary decisions actually entail.
Can I just add a bit there, which I think
absolutely.
might maybe help? Well, if I just come in on this, I've got Atvod's annual report 2012-13 in front of me. They're boasting about all the control work they're doing with pornography channels, because Atvod says that a key role is to protect children from online pornography. Surprisingly or not, 3 BBC appeals have all been upheld. And they go on to say here, the BBC Worldwide on Mediaset appeal was decided on the basis of information which had not been made available to Atvod at the time of its determination. Each case involved complex issues, and the appeals process plays an important part in clarifying both the scope of the regulations and the entity to which they apply in particular circumstances. Is this my imagination, Mike, or does this really say they're making up the rules as they go along?
Absolutely, that is my understanding of what's going on, yes.
The BBC is invited to sit into meetings with Atvod, so they help form the policy, and then surprise, surprise, the BBC appeals are all upheld.
Right.
But Atvod's independent.
Right. So getting back to our story then, to cut a long story short, we had various further communications with Atvod since February until the present, and at the end of the day they issued what they call an enforcement notice, because we were simply refusing to engage with them in any meaningful way, and that gave us until yesterday to ask them very nicely if we would be so kind as to, or if they would be so kind as to regulate us, and regulate our activities. Now, since we're not going to step into their world, we took the decision to take the videos down. So I just want to clarify that Atvod has not closed the YouTube channel. In order to avoid regulation by Atvod, we have decided to stop acting as a video on demand service, which is what they claim that we are doing. And we will then take a breather and look at what we might do in the future. But in the meantime, we'll continue with the live stream. And certainly I would imagine that our the other people that we work with, like Ian Crane, may find other places to put their programs.
But of course this potentially affects everybody who's producing material on the internet, because Atvod simply says we don't care how big or small you are, we're going to regulate you, and if you're putting material up in a television-like way, which they define what that definition is. So if anybody is out there starting to produce, that's the key word, if the material's produced in a television-like way, you are going to come under the control. So here we have the British government starting directly to regulate the internet in 2014.
Now, something that was very interesting, I thought, in a recent telephone conversation that a friend of ours had with the chief executive of Atvod, Peter Johnson, he admitted that their main sort of motivation is to regulate anybody perceived to be in competition with the mainstream media. Now, I think that's a fairly fascinating situation, because what we have on behind Atvod is many mainstream media bodies, and so it seems like we're in the situation where basically they are really there to stamp on anybody that make sure that they never get big enough to actually challenge the BBC or Channel 4 or any of these other companies.
So we should probably be flattered that the UK column has been selected to be an extremely television-like broadcast.
Yeah.
Atvod statistics are that roughly 2% of the broadcasts are on demand.
Yes.
Of which they're saying most of that on demand is actually provided by the BBC.
Right.
And so we are a tiny fraction of what remains, but we're so dangerous because we're telling the truth that we're going to be regulated. Well, we're not.
Right. Now, Atvod's terms of reference state that there must be a majority of independent members on the determination panel. So the determination panel has a mixture of people that are considered independent and people that are from the industry for whatever reason, and they're considered non-independent. But independent, there must be an independent majority. But if we look at who is considered independent, and let's just take one example, we've got the deputy chair, Nigel Walmsley, who's supposed to be an independent board member. And he has a career spanning decades in the mainstream media, including directorships Carlton Television, ITV3 Limited, ITV Trust, Daybreak Television on Digital Media Acquisition Company, UBC Media Group, Select TV Cable, GNC Media Investments, just to name a few. There are a whole host more. And what's more, at least one current media directorship is not included on the Atvod Register of Interests. So, I mean, this man is clearly not independent. And actually, when we asked Atvod, I mean, we spoke to Atvod on a number of occasions about the Register of Interests, and they don't seem to care.
Well, they absolutely don't care. And of course, if you have a look at what they consider to be a Register of Interest, it's a few bullet points. It's not actually a comprehensive list of interests signed by the person concerned, which is the way it's normally done around the police boards or local authority boards. So a very cavalier attitude to how they produce these things. And when we pointed out there were errors, there were omissions, Atvod simply not interested. A lot of arrogance, I think, particularly from Mr. Peter Johnson, the chief executive.
Now, the chairperson of the Authority for Television on Demand is a lady called Ruth Evans, and this woman is really godlike in her what she's capable of. So I just thought we would just sort of go through her CV, which is amazing. Right. Currently, aside from being chair for the Authority of Television on Demand, she is non-executive commissioner and chair of Remuneration Committee at the Independent Police Complaints Commission. She's also a director of Alacrity Entrepreneurship Foundation. She's also a consultant at SHM Partnership. She's also a non-executive director and chair of Remuneration Committee at the National Audit Office. She's also, up until January 12 then, she's also been involved in the government administration industry. Now, she's held a number of posts from 1999 to 2011. She was non-executive director of PhonePay Plus. She was member of Consumer Impact Panel Association of British Insurers.
This is all one lady. One lady.
Yes, she was a board member at ING Direct. She was chairman Bar Standards Board. She was member of Queen's Counsel Selection Panel. She was deputy chair Ofcom Consumer Panel. She was a lay member General Medical Council. She was a chairman Standards Committee GMC. She was a member of the Audit Commission Independent Complaints Panel. She was a non-executive director Nationwide Building Society. She was a member of Law Society Governance Review Group. She was a chair Independent Inquiry into Drug Testing at Work. She was a member of the Human Genetics Commission, non-executive director Financial Ombudsman Service, non-executive director Liverpool Victoria Group, chairman Independent Inquiry into Paediatric Cardiac Services at Royal Brompton and Harefield Hospitals, member of Fabian Society's Commission on Taxation and Citizenship, member Independent Panel for Future Funding of the BBC, trustee the Money Advice Trust. She's been
independent.
Yes.
BBC.
Yes.
Good.
Chief Executive National Consumer Council.
Yeah.
Chief Executive, Board Director and National Consumer Council Services Limited, which was a joint venture with Deloitte Touche. She's been chair of Standing Advisory Group on Consumers in the NHS. She's been member of Central Research and Development Committee of the NHS. She's been a member of the UK Roundtable on Sustainable Development. She's been a member of the Expert Panel on Sustainable Development. She's been a member of the NHS Charter Advisory Group. She's been a member of the DTI's Consumer First Award Scheme Panel. She's been a member of the DOH Advisory Board acting on complaints. She's been a board member, Prevention of Professional Abuse Network. She's been a member of the Committee of Management of UK Cochrane Centre. She's been a consultant at the Department of Health. She's been a chief executive at Warren One. She's been a deputy director of Mind.
So quite a woman, independent.
Quite a woman, totally independent.
Yeah,
yes.
good.
Yes. Now, of course, Atvod says that the regulatory burden is really low. They say that they're there to make sure children don't get access to harmful materials.
Yeah.
They say that they're there to prevent hate speech. And they say that, in fact, if we were to be regulated by them, we could take part in a panel of the regulated.
Right.
Yes, panel of the regulated to make our points. But of course, this so-called light regulation is the thin end of the wedge. Atvod says that they gain their mandate from a statutory instrument which amended the Communications Act 2003. Now that statutory instrument came about, it was made by the minister at the time as a result of a European Commission directive which was designed to make sure that broadcast television companies did not put programming on the internet which would not be suitable for broadcast networks. It was not intended at that time for censorship of the internet. Now I have this from somebody who's an expert on these issues.
Yeah.
So this is not me saying it, this is somebody else saying it. And Atvod is absolutely working beyond their authority at the moment, and nobody is challenging them. So that's what really this is about, isn't it?
We are warning people in a very upfront way that this is unbelievably dangerous. You have these completely unaccountable people. None of them are independent. They're absolutely linked into the mainstream broadcasting circuit. They are meeting behind closed doors with no minutes, no transparency for the public in order to make judgments and decisions on who they're going to regulate. And they don't even know what their own rules are because, as I just said, I'll repeat it, each case with the BBC appeal, each case involved complex issues, and the appeal process plays an important role in clarifying both the scope of the regulations and the entity to which they apply in particular circumstances. So we can categorically state that Atvod, by its own admission, does not know what the scope of the regulations are they're trying to enforce. They do not know their own regulations, and they don't necessarily know what entity it should apply to. But they are very big on porn. It has to be said that they're boasting that they've made some very big fines against porn channels.
Well, if you look at the determinations they made over the last 2 or 3 years, it seems that they've spent most of their time watching online pornography.
But that, of course, is television, isn't it? Television-like programs, pornography, according to Atvod.
That's what they say.
Right. Well, if I just bring our... Oh, sorry, I was about to say viewers, but of course we're just here alone in a car. So here's a House of Lords document. Just bring that in front of the camera. And this was media convergence and its public policy impact. It was session 13, 5th of February 2013, House of Lords. And two key people were in front of the panel, Ruth Evans, that lady with a long list of attributes, and Peter Johnson. And Ruth Evans said that Peter was the expert and that she was the generalist, and that was how we play it. And then it says they're looking after vulnerable people, and Ruth Evans says that she's concerned about stuff that is legal but not permitted for children. But strangely enough, Peter Johnson was originally working with the British Board of Film Censors, where he was producing policy. And of course what we've seen from censorship of films is that the pornography allowed has got worse and worse, and now it would appear that Mr. Johnson has simply hopped across to Atvod to regulate it. He's paid somewhere between £100,000 a year and £102,000 a year. But don't worry about the money, because basically Atvod can create their own money by saying that you, any of you on the end of that camera, are a television-like program, and they can come along and fine you. So if they need to pay themselves more money, they simply need more little people to fine.
So
what can we say? Can we speak especially to audiences in former Eastern European countries who've known what massive government censorship is? Can we talk to our friends in Russia who will almost certainly know what massive government censorship is? Well, we can now tell you that as a result of Atvod, Atvod has now declared its intent to start the full censorship of anybody who dares to get in front of a camera on the internet and produce television-like programs.
So what do we want people to do?
Well, what we need people to do is, it's time to stick together. This is very, very serious. It doesn't matter whether it's UK Column or the People's Voice or the Community Press Group or anybody else who is out there trying to get the truth out over internet broadcasting. These people can come for all and any of us. So this is the time that we need to make the world population aware that this lying, deceitful British government under Cameron at the moment, but formerly, of course, Blair and Gordon Brown. Tony Blair, remember, was the man who put his friends in place to start Ofcom. This is the point at which the British government has declared it is so frightened of the truth that it's going to censor the internet. We need millions of people to start phoning, speak to Atvod, speak to Ofcom, speak to your MPs, speak to people at the bus stop, and start withdrawing your consent for what is blatant censorship of the British government.
Now, of course,
they could register.
That's true. Whether or not you are producing programming, lots of people have YouTube channels even when they're not producing their own programs. Now, of course, people may be in doubt about whether those YouTube channels actually are required to register with Atvod, maybe people should find out, because
well, I think we'd encourage people to inquire whether they should be registered under Atvod, because Atvod has a duty to respond to queries, to tell people whether they should be regulating you or not. And it will be interesting to see whether Atvod is going to cope with maybe 10,000 people a week. But of course we can't suggest that, because that would be like a television announcement. So I think what we're really saying is a couple of blokes sat in a car park in the rain. This is what life in Britain is going to be like under censorship from King Cameron, unless we, the British people, stand up to be counted and do something about it.
Now, obviously, this conversation is going to end in a second, because we're just going to get out of the car without saying goodbye or anything.
Well, we can't. No, we can't have credits.
But on the live stream after this video goes out, it's not a program.
Yeah.
It's a video. After this video goes out on the live stream, there's another very interesting video, and I just would like to encourage everybody to hang on for a couple of minutes after this whatever it is is shown, and please do watch the live stream.
And we'll just say, if you've noticed that Louise has disappeared, I think Atvod took her.
Something happened, and she was there 1 second and gone the next.
So it's obviously not live television. Thanks for joining us. Bye bye.
Well, you're not allowed to